ask Roger questions in press conferences at tournaments I've covered, but I'd never properly met him until 2013. That year, I was covering Wimbledon for the New York Times during the first week of the tournament when Roger lost to Sergei Stakhovsky, then ranked 116th in the second round. On the first Monday morning of the fortnight, during the gloriously quiet hour or two before the grounds of the All England Club are open to the public, I was walking and talking with Nick Bollettieri when I saw Roger and Paul Annacone, his coach at the time, approaching us. Roger made a beeline toward us and embraced Nick. For a moment, I stood there, assuming the three of them would have a chat while I stood there feeling like a discarded milk carton. But Roger came to the rescue, turning to me with a friendly greeting and a handshake. Our interaction lasted no more than a minute, but he was very nice. Nothing extraordinary, but that was the beauty of it. He acted like a normal, genuine person, not at all like a celebrity. I'm not easily starstruck, but I returned to the media center feeling like I'd just received a blessing from the Pope. My admiration for Mr. Roger, no middle name, Federer, reached new levels in 2017, when he won 2 majors after nearly every tennis writer had already written his tennis obit. He could have quietly drifted off to the Alps to meditate in the lotus position while counting his Swiss francs, but instead, he rededicated himself to the sport and turned the tables on his younger rivals. When Roger won the Australian Open in 2017, his first major in nearly 5 years, I had just started to experience out-of-control inflammation in my feet and legs. The condition was so painful and itchy that I couldn't sleep. Staying up all night watching Roger win down under brightened my mood and eased the pain. 2019 was a year of transition for me, and I've had several of these, having moved well over a dozen times across several countries and states since I graduated from college many years ago. At the time I was planning my Federer trip, we had just moved from Oregon to Florida, where I hoped that the warm and humid climate would help my brittle skin. With the decade winding down, I was also frustrated with my writing career and was thinking about a change. Big life decisions are always a perfect excuse for a trip, and I reckoned that traveling across 7 cantons to the neighborhoods where Roger has lived and the tennis clubs where he'd honed his game before watching him play at his hometown tennis tournament would help me better understand not just Roger, but also Switzerland, that prosperous, heartbreakingly beautiful but enigmatic 4-language outlier in the heart of Europe. With any luck, I could also make my tennis comeback on hallowed ground. Day 1. Federer will live here? After an overnight transatlantic flight and a layover of a few hours in Frankfurt, I stepped off the plane in Zurich and into a long tunnel in the terminal, bleary-eyed, feeling a bit like a zombie caught between time zones working on 0 hours sleep. The first person I saw was Roger Federer, looking dapper in an expensive suit. He was on a monitor, walking across the screen in a loop. "Hello, and welcome to Basel," he said with a smirk, before pausing and, with that wonderful childlike grin he has, continuing, "Just kidding, of course. This is Zurich. Enjoy your stay." It was an ad for Credit Suisse, which is probably a lot better at banking than it is at humor. It would have been better if Roger had turned up at the airport to greet me, but this was the next best thing. I chose Rapperswil, a charming small town of about 7,000 moneyed and well-coiffed residents on the western shore of Lake Zurich, as my first Swiss base, because Federer had recently purchased an 18,000-square-meter plot of land to build yet another dream home on Lake Zurich, just outside Rapperswil town limits, for a reported $40 to $50 million. I resisted the urge to sleep and spent a couple of hours exploring the town on foot before setting off to look at Roger's land. It was easy to see why Roger and his family would want to live in Rapperswil. It's a quiet, idyllic little place with a medieval castle, a fine harbor with expensive-looking boats, a venerable monastery, and meandering cobblestone streets with attractive shops and overpriced restaurants that are perfectly fine if you're Roger Federer, but not so appealing for the budget traveler. Outside Rapperswil's monastery, which dates